So for our next adventure, we're going to move from innovators to operators and their backers. And from big company executive to startup CEO, from angel investor for his family's portfolio to institutional finance and board member, there are few investors out there with the breadth of knowledge and experience that Tyler Ricks brings to BevNET Live, and fewer still who come to the table without even a real fixed mindset toward brand development. That's because as an investor, Tyler is also a long-time company operator, a true brand man, and that's the lens he's used when investing in more than 20 different entrepreneurial food and beverage companies over the years as a private investor and as someone who sits on the boards of 6 more through his current position with the investment side of agribusiness giant Continental Grain. So bringing in Tyler to speak is a way to give us a lesson in how investors can truly add value beyond what their dollars bring in, and some ideas of how to attract and work with those who do so. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Tyler Ricks. Great to see you. Thanks. Yep. I see you brought your
Thank you. It's great to be back here at BevNET Live. I want to thank the BevNET team for putting on such a great event. I can't believe how much it's grown. It's almost 1,000 people here this year. It's fantastic. And thank you to all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here, to come together as an industry and share insights and best practices. To be honest, when Jeff called me, 3 months ago, and asked me to come here to speak on creating value, my first question was really, why me? I mean, I could think of 100 other names, founders of large businesses, billion-dollar exits, fund managers who started large funds that feed the space. But just listening to his intro, I think it all came together. Basically, if I read between the lines, what he said is, this guy's seen a lot of shit. He didn't necessarily say that I've done any of it well, by the way. Thanks, Jeff. But in reality, I am blessed to have seen a lot of different things throughout my career. And Jeff hit some of the highlights. I'll just flip through it real quick. Really, I've been in CPG, I've been in retail, startups, large companies, growth equity, middle markets, sales, marketing, innovation, a lot of different facets of the business. Yes, I did work for a company called Bare Naked. Yes, it made it very difficult to answer that question, where do you work? To be honest, like many of us, we dreaded that next question. Oh, really? Bare Naked. So what do you all do? I think many of my colleagues and I developed a defense mechanism. For me, it was easy. I just said, I work for a company called Bare Naked. We're in natural food, not porn. Yes, I also did work for a company, my own company. I was a founder of a business and had the unfortunate decision to name that company Yum Nuts. No, I did not know at the time that the food and beverage industry was full of so many perverts. Thank you for laughing. I was talking about all of you. But no, seriously, my goal here today is not necessarily to get up here and tell you how to create value for your companies. My goal is really to draw on these experiences to highlight some case studies that hopefully get you to think about your value creation roadmap. Whether you're an investor or an entrepreneur, you should be thinking about your value creation roadmap. You should make sure that you have alignment of your teams, your resources, your boards, and your investors. So for me, aside from being an operator for the last 25 years, I've had the opportunity to sit alongside some great entrepreneurs as a board member. As Jeff said, I'm currently on 6 boards. The best thing about being on a board is you get exposure to different companies, different leaders, different sectors, different challenges, and yes, different growth strategies. And it's incredibly rewarding when you can tap into your experience and help somebody else grow their business. It's also a great place to gain exposure to other critical experiences that you will be able to draw on in the future. So I'm incredibly thankful to be working alongside a lot of great entrepreneurs on boards. Shout out, I think the ones here are the Super Coffee guys, all right? And then alongside my wife, Brianna, we've also been an active venture investor. This is some of the companies that we've been involved in as an investor. And I would be lying to you if I stood up here and tried to take credit for anything with regards to value creation that any of these companies have done. Outside of the few I've sat on boards, I am a passive investor. I'm not going to be that angel investor who's in your shorts, who's trying to be an extension of your team. I will always take a call. I will always help however I can, but that's not why I invested. I think actually if we were going to title my personal investment philosophy, because I do have a day job, my philosophy would probably be less around creating value and more around spotting value, right? If I can identify those companies that I believe have laid the foundation for value creation, that's generally where I come in. All right, finally, before I jump into value creation, my current company, Continental Grain, since most of you probably haven't heard of it, it's a 200-year-old company. We are a hybrid investment firm. We're flexible long-term capital. We invest a lot of times off our balance sheet. For this sector, probably most relevant is our direct investment in Joyride Coffee. We also have partnerships. We love the partnership model. We have 9 figures invested with JAB in their coffee platform, and we are also partnered with Tom and Dayton at Boulder Food Group on their venture investments. So that's Continental Grain. I'm happy to tell you more about it later, but we love the food and agriculture space. It's pretty much all we do. Now we're going to spend the next 20 minutes really going deep on my value creation model. I want to kind of walk you guys through this step by step. Can you guys all read this in the back? No? No? Well, it doesn't matter, because to be honest, this is not my value creation model. This is what came up when I Googled, and I thought it was a really good example of what not to do for a couple of reasons. The first is entirely personal. As a brand guy, the graphics are absolutely horrible. It looks like the game of life or something. You know, as a kid, you like spin the wheel. But no, more importantly, it's far too complicated. I can't even imagine standing up in front of a board, my company or a board of directors or a group of investors and having to walk through this value creation strategy. Third reason, probably not to spend any more time on this page, is I didn't actually get their approval to include this. So Jeff, can we pull this out before you post? But no, let's take a closer look at value creation, seriously. I mean, the simple definition is easy, right? We're here to try and increase the value of our business for our stakeholders, including our investors. The key, though, about value creation is that it's an exercise you need to go through to determine the few key areas that you're going to invest your resources to try and create value. You're going to invest your time, your people, and your capital around a few key things that you believe will create value for your business. And that's what we'll talk about. The first one I already said is keep it simple. True story. I joined the board of a company in May. It's not a beverage company. Looking at their materials, they have 21 different levers for value creation. 21. I know you're thinking blackjack, right? But if you were a gambler, you would not put your money on this company. It's far too complicated, and the company's not performing well. However, we spent time to come together as a management team, as a board, as an investor group, and redefine the roadmap for the future. We now have a much tighter plan with 4 key value creation pillars. And those pillars will drive 90% of the value creation for this company over the next 4 years if we execute well. So the first rule is really try and keep it simple. Second, make it specific to your business. I've met so many entrepreneurs over the years that say, well, we have to do this because that worked for Cliff Bar, or we have to do this because Method did it, or Vitamin Water did this. The reality is every business is different. Consumers are different, segments are different, competition's different. Entrepreneurs are different with regards to their vision for growth. So take the time to understand what works for you, your company, and your group of investors, and put together a value creation strategy that is specific to you and your company. Because if you just try and copy what others did, I guarantee you'll fail. And you'll waste a lot of resources in the process. The third, I'd encourage you all to run a process like the Vital Few or something else where you can really quantify the components of your value creation thesis. Spend time on a few things, quantify those. Don't just quantify the size of the opportunity, but also quantify the resources needed and what you think the ROI on those resources would be. It's important for you to quantify these and then to measure against them. Set aggressive timelines, the fourth one. This is important. Anyone who's working with private equity here, generally private equity is great at this, right? They have fund lives, they have to monetize investments, they have to show returns for their investors. They're gonna push you. That's great. But I would encourage you all, even if you're not working with private equity, to set aggressive timelines. And if you're one of the rare entrepreneurs out there who doesn't want aggressive timelines, I have one tip. Don't talk to any of the people here from private equity. It's only gonna create a problem down the road. Last, measurement, and I'll pop up the last one, evolve. It's important. Look, measure every step of the way. And when your measurement says that one of your value creation strategies isn't working, don't be afraid to evolve. You don't have to stick to something that's not working. In fact, it's a little bit of the definition of insanity to continue. Now we're going to pop into some quick lightning round of case studies. So, as I said, part of this is just to draw on experiences from the past where I saw value creation, share those with all of you to stimulate thought. So Fisher-Price, this is ancient, 1996, I was right out of grad school. I was working at Fisher-Price. The Little People brand had built a nice business, north of 100 million in sales, but it was stagnant. It was not growing. And our goal was to take this little business with these little peg people and figure out how we could breathe new life into the brand and into the business. So as the Wall Street Journal headline here says, tiny dolls get big personalities and boost sales. So what did we do? It was pretty straightforward. We took advantage of new product technology, rotomolding in the toy industry, and we developed these little characters that had arms and legs and hair and personalities. We put them in a clear window package so you could see the magic. We repositioned the brand all around imagination. We launched a new advertising campaign, and we developed a comprehensive licensing strategy. The results were fantastic. A brand that was growing, basically 0 to 1% a year, grew at north of 30% for the next few years. Next, I want to talk about a case study from PepsiCo. I was very fortunate in my 9 years at Pepsi to work on 2 large projects that both delivered tremendous value creation. The first was the launch of Mountain Dew Code Red, and the second was replacing the 7-Up brand within the Pepsi Blue distribution system with Sierra Mist. That was a straightforward distribution and marketing play, so what I'd rather do is spend a little more time going deeper on Mountain Dew Code Red. Similar story, Mountain Dew had built tremendous strength with its core consumer. It had been on a tear of high single-digit, low double-digit growth throughout the entire 90s. But as we were turning the corner from 99 to 2000, the brand was actually facing its first potentially negative year in the last 20. Brand had lost its way a little bit. Our CEO of Pepsi-Cola North America, Gary Rodkin, challenged the team. He said, "You've built up all this equity. It's time to cash some of that in and launch some new products." So we worked on the launch of Mountain Dew Code Red. The key thing I'll tell you about the Code Red launch is we did not take the traditional approach to launching a new soft drink. We didn't follow the playbook of Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi or even Coke or Pepsi. We spent a lot of time with our core teen and young adult consumer, heavy male focus, talking about how to launch this brand. And to be honest, there was an inflection point where we realized that we didn't actually own the brand, they thought they did. And we worked closely with them, and they told us how to launch the brand. They said, launch it in 20 ounce and 1 liter. Those are our packages. Maybe fountain drinks as well. I want to be drinking it for 2 months before my mom sees it in a 12-pack or a 2 liter at the grocery store. They said, focus on our channels, convenience and gas, quick serve restaurants like Taco Bell. They said, don't do big national TV campaigns. So we focused on viral and influencer marketing long before social media existed. And finally, we used it as an opportunity to take this brand that had become known for kind of crazy white boys jumping off cliffs, and to evolve it just a little bit to be more multiculturally inclusive. So we really focused our spend in urban markets, and we focused on multicultural platforms like street ball that we thought would attract a broader audience, but still embodied exhilaration. It was really the urban expression of exhilaration. The results were great. We had forecast, because of the limited way we were launching this product, we forecast to do 17 million cases in our first year. We did over 100 million cases. It was the most successful soft drink launch since Diet Coke. It was a great project to work on, and I learned a lot from it. Okay, we'll go faster because I'm see the clock ticking. So Bare Naked, pretty typical. Commoditized category. The key incumbents, Quaker and Kellogg's, were asleep at the wheel, milking category profits. We launched a better product full of fruits and nuts. We put it in a window bag, took it out of the box, put it in a window bag so you could see the quality of the ingredients. We built a nice, modern, youthful brand around it, and then we drove distribution and launched flavor line extensions. The brand went from $10 million to $45 million in 18 months, and we sold the company to Kellogg's. Plum Organics, another disruptive challenger brand in the baby food space, really taking on the incumbent Gerber. Pretty similar playbook with a few subtle differences. It started with packaging technology, actually, the squeezy pouch. We launched baby food in a more convenient, on-the-go format for moms. We put healthy ingredients like kale, Greek yogurt, chia, superfood ingredients into the foods. Ingredients that moms were saying, I know that I buy these at Whole Foods, I know they're healthy for me. Why wouldn't we put these in baby food? So that allowed us to take a big chunk out of Gerber's sales. But quite honestly, the real disruption came when we developed a brand and a food philosophy that stood for everything that Gerber did not. We took all of what they were espousing on food philosophy and how to introduce foods to kids, and we flipped it on its head. We wrapped that up in a PR campaign and leveraged the heck out of social and digital, and we built one of the highest engagement brands that Google had measured. All of that helped us build incredible loyalty with who we called the modern mom, and then we used that as a platform to extend as their kids grew into toddler and then healthier kids snacks. Plum Organics went from 35 million in sales to about 105, 110 million in sales in 20 months, and sold to Campbell Soup. Peet's Coffee, middle markets. Peet's, great brand, really great coffee, great brand. But quite honestly, got a little tired, a little sleepy. Certainly from a value creation perspective, they weren't even close to keeping up with Starbucks. Peet's was the original craft coffee, but Starbucks was leaving them in the dust. Then JAB bought it, and JAB started to kick in their value creation platform. It's pretty straightforward with them. They start with net working capital. Squeeze net working capital out of the business. Peet's net working capital was north of $50 million. They took it down to negative 10. For those of you who are doing math, $60 million in net working capital was freed up to fund the company's growth. They're using other people's capital to drive their growth. We invested that growth in innovation, cold brew coffee, warm breakfast sandwiches, light roast, medium roast, K-cups, a new chai tea, a new frozen blended platform. We used that money to launch into new markets, new DSD routes, new retail stores in Chicago, in Washington, D.C., and Boston. We use that capital for add-on acquisitions, bringing in great third-wave players like Stumptown and Intelligentsia, Mighty Leaf Tea. All of those things helped us grow. We added over $100 million in growth every year. And then JAB used their classic playbook of cost savings initiatives to squeeze more money out of the company to fund that next chapter of growth. 5 years later, that $400 million brand that JAB bought is crossing the billion-dollar threshold. Okay, one more. This is not going to be a positive value creation story. Caribou Coffee, also a JAB company, was looking for ways to drive value. They had an investment thesis or a hypothesis that if they took really great food and brought it into their great coffee shops, that they could drive higher AUVs with better profitability. So they bought Einstein Bagels for that sole purpose alone. They integrated the companies. They developed a co-branded store concept called Coffee and Bagels, and they opened 70 stores, north of 70 stores. Average cost, about $900,000 per store to open. It's a big investment. The problem was, those stores, when they opened, yeah, the volumes were higher, but the profit was not. It was a very complex store to operate. They were not meeting consumers' needs. The wait times were way too long. Labor costs were out of control. And after a lot of tinkering and fine-tuning, at the end of the day, the company came to the realization that they could not make that model work. They decided that Caribou was better off focusing on being a really damn good coffee shop, and Einstein should be focused on being a really good bagelry. So each of those 70-plus stores either got converted back to an Einstein or back to a Caribou. And if I had to place a bet, I would say that those companies will likely disintegrate or separate over the next few years. Now, it's not all lost. They learned a lot during that process, and I will tell you that Caribou is far better positioned now and is growing their sales significantly with a better food platform from what they learned. They didn't bring in all the operational complexity of an Einstein, where you're baking fresh bagels in every store every day and full customizable breakfast and lunch menu, but they did bring in better food in a simple operating model and are driving significant value creation at this point. And on the other side, Einstein realized that they actually could create value by selling better coffee. Again, they had to do it in a simple way, operationally, that didn't bog down the stores, but they could focus on 3 or 4 key drinks that would drive 90% of the beverage sales and launch those products. So that's an example of what not to do, but then also how to evolve. All right, I'm going to wrap up real quick. I've got about 6 minutes left. So just some tips for entrepreneurs and operators. 1, choose like-minded investors. There's nothing worse than having an investor and an entrepreneur not aligned on value creation, right? Go big, go fast, spend lots of money. I want to go slow, I want to go methodical. I don't want dilution, etc. Build the right teams. Don't just choose board members that are going to nod their head and yes and support you in everything you do. Pick board members who are going to challenge you, who are going to fill in functional skill sets that you don't have, who are really going to add value. Define your ways of working with those teams and those boards. Align on a value creation playbook. This is what we've been talking about. What is your playbook, and are you aligned with your company, your board members, and your investors? Scorecard your progress and hold your people accountable, including yourself. Push outside your comfort zone. Real value creation happens when you're challenged to push outside your comfort zone. And finally, ask for help. Too many entrepreneurs don't ask for help. You're the ones creating value. What's your ask of your investors? What's your ask of your board members? Hold them accountable too. All right, and on the other side, tips for investors: Make sure your investment thesis, before you invest in that company, that you have a clear idea of how you're going to create value with that company. I've seen investment theses, believe it or not, that don't have any idea of how value creation is going to happen. Hire the right management team, and more importantly, align your incentives with that management team. Don't be afraid to put your money where your mouth is. Give them real skin in the game. Ensure you're focused on a few key priorities. We talked about it, the vital few. Really important when you're talking resource allocation. Deploy capital on high ROI projects, measure constantly, and again, act with urgency. Again, I hope this was helpful for you, sharing experiences that'll help you think about value creation differently for your company and your investors. Thank you very much for your time.
Super, thank you. I loved the collection of different value creation strategies by size of company. We looked at technology for innovation. We looked at the search for new customers. We looked at an attempt to combine strengths and then pull back. I guess the big question is, how should a company, and who decides at the company, how that value creation strategy is going to be, how do you pick one? Who picks it?
You know, I mean, I don't know that I have the answer outside of what I've seen. It's been different at almost every company. You know, the key decision maker might be different based on who has control and the personalities around the table. The process of choosing is often different. I think at the end of the day, what I would say is, I'm a big believer that diverse groups of individuals, diverse groups develop better solutions. And so surrounding yourself with people that will help you through that process, right? Help you work through that value creation thesis, and ensure that you have alignment there is the most important way to go.
Is that at the ownership level? Is that the board level?
I think it starts at the board level.
Really?
I think you know, management team and board, CEO and board. I think it really starts there. But hopefully, you know, the teams you've assembled in your operating business, right, are doing a lot of that heavy lifting for you, right? You want to surround yourself with good people who are thinking about value creation day in and day out, and who aren't getting complacent.
And this goes back to a lot of the open innovation theories we hear about at bigger companies, right? Anyone should be able to get a value creation idea up to leadership.
Right.
How do you foster that kind of environment?
You know, I've been really lucky. I've worked, you know, for companies that had a very open environment, and I've worked with founders who were just wired that way. I'd say it's harder right now on some of the boards I'm sitting on in the middle market segment. You know, and it's also harder, you know, being a board member versus being an operator, right? I can't just swoop in and expect to solve people's problems. So, you know, I think all I would say is that organizations have to make a commitment to it. If you want to develop real innovation, you actually have to invest time and energy and resources into that process.
Got one last question that sort of goes back to that idea of innovation versus almost reality, market realities. Is how do you justify a brand awareness spend versus the deployment of capital against sort of higher ROI type products?
You know, again, I think every brand's different. You know, I was thinking about it today. I'm like, you know, let's look at two brands in this space, right? Red Bull, when they launched into North America, huge successful brand. I think it was 2 years before they did anything to launch new products, right? It was just that 8-ounce can, right? And then they launched a 12-ounce can, a 4-pack, right? I mean, it was many years before they really developed new product innovation. They just invested on the brand. They just invested, you know, on building a really strong brand. Then you look at a brand like Califia Farms, right? They've gone heavy on innovation on the front half, also very successful, right? Great business, great brand, but two totally different value creation networks. One invested heavily in brand up front, one's invested heavily in new products. I mean, I can't imagine if Califia Farms had tried to use Red Bull strategy, right? I mean, can you imagine going into a bar
Just
and
almond milk.
yeah, can I have an almond milk and vodka?
Yeah.
It sounds terrible.
Yeah. So, I mean, part of it's knowing your environment then, right? And knowing the context of the product you're trying to introduce and what the best paths are.
Yeah. There's no one size fits all.
Yeah.
In fact, when people don't do their homework and don't understand their business and their consumer, they often get into trouble just trying to emulate someone else's tactics.
Absolutely. Tyler, thank you so much for sharing this with us. It's so great to have you here. I know you're going to be around for a little while.
Yeah.
Talk to this guy.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Ray Latif with Taste Radio. If you like what you just saw, hit subscribe and ding the bell. You'll be happy you did.